Some people thought it was me who went to jail. Some people were like looking forward for me going to jail next because they felt like it was like a woman thing. Now women are going to jail. I was like, why? I'm a Christian, I'm a Catholic, I'm a homosexual, and I'm like, what else? Like these people who would on social media, on the internet, would say the most horrible things about you. And they met you face to face, they would never say anything remotely close to that. After my fellow colleague went to jail, we all stepped out of social media, we laid low. It was a really unpleasant, ugly, terrifying, pressing, anxious phase of all of our life. Because nobody wants to go to jail for a joke, for a piece of art that you performed. My entire background was very much single Buddhist. My friends were that, my family was that, my neighbors were that. My school was that. I had a very narrow perspective towards, because your background creates your perspective, right? Stand-up comedy especially, I believe, has so much potential to really talk about any serious or even taboo topic in a very light-hearted manner.
Meet Taniya, a rising stand-up comedian. Her sharp perspective will challenge your thinking, speak laughter, and inspire you to act.
And I'm 100% proud of going through all of that and being here today and still being soft and gentle and not letting some of the bitter experiences change my personality, change the good in me.
Taniya, thank you so much for making time to have a conversation. Thank you so much for saying yes to a stranger.
Of course, I'm really glad to be here.
If someone was making a movie about your life, what would those key scenes be?
Okay, so this is really an interesting question. If somebody is making a movie about my life, it will be really interesting.
I'm sure.
Because I'm an interesting person like that. The key points, I would say it would start with my childhood. Because if you look at my childhood, I was a very independent child. I would consider myself a wise soul. I was sort of always solving problems most of my life-ish. I was also a little tomboyish. So I think my childhood would be an important part because your childhood really tells a lot about why you are the way you are, right? So childhood. My school would be a part, I think, from my education background. So I started my studies at a small school in Avisavela, that's my hometown. And then I passed my scholarship and it came to Visakha Vidyalaya in Colombo. My Visakha, my school was a big turning point in my life because I tell this story, I think it might come up even later in the conversation. When I came to Visakha, I really knew almost nothing about English. I have this famous story where I tell everybody where the first day of my school, so we were seated and the child next to me, the student, said, can you pick up that handkerchief under your chair? So now I knew chair, I knew pick up. I didn't know what handkerchief meant. So I was now trying to figure out, okay, what should I do? And I think right now, almost anybody would know what a handkerchief meant. That's why I always be like, if I could learn English, I think anybody could learn English. So my school was, I recognized my school as a turning point because one, it really opened up this opportunity for me to get into the language. Because that was, there was another incident. So I was very small, but I remember these incidents very vividly. So to say it had a very strong impact on me. We had this game called, it's not a game, P language. Have you heard of it?
Yes.
So I was good at the P language, but I was not good at English. So somebody said, Hapai dupu yupu nopo. So I translated that in my head, how do you know? But I didn't know what that meant. So I remember going to one of my friends and was like, what does how do you know mean? And I remember the shock in her face. She was a good friend. So I could see like, she was trying to tell me what it meant without making me sound like an idiot, right? And I could see that. So those were like moments where I was anyway, even as a child, I had a lot of self-awareness in me. So those were like few moments where I felt like, okay, you're bad at English. You need to figure out English. And for some reason, we were the first batch who were offered to do O-level in English medium. I was bad at English, but for some reason I opted to do it in English medium. I remember like there were almost every other day I would come home, I would cry saying I can't, I'm going to revert back to single medium. But every other day I kept going. And I also, so my parents sort of let me be a very independent child, and they didn't try to push or force things to me. But whenever I needed help, whenever I called something out, they were there. So for O-level, I didn't go for tuition for many subjects. Because my English was bad, I got this tutor who was an amazing. We called him Bandara sir. And he really covered all the bases from grammar to spoken English to whatever, everything. So I learned my basics and pretty much the whole of my English knowledge from him. And then things got easier and whatnot. So that was one. The other reason why I would want my school to be included in this thing, because that's the place that really opened my eyes for me to know that I had some creativity in me. Because I was in my smaller school, my primary school, I was like, I didn't do any writing or any creative work per se, but I was a very competitive child. I loved winning competitions. I love gifts and all that. So in my school, there was a big notice board where they publish all sorts of competitions like poetry, essay, drama, blah, blah, blah. And I would be like, oh my God, so many competitions. So I would just apply because I wanted to win. But in the process of doing that, I would get teachers' help. And I realized, oh my God, I can write. And that was sort of the beginning of my creative career. And I also then participated in all these creative clubs, literature clubs. I was the president of what we call the Sinhala Literary Association, which is like the second biggest club in the school. The first one was the Buddhist club. This is the second biggest, and we do this annual like festival of arts thing, which is like a big deal for the school. So that space from leadership to creativity, and that was really was an opportunity that was given to me by my school. And there were also a few teachers who sort of shaped my personality and my creative journey. That's one. The third major point would be my uni. I did my first bachelor's in science at University of Kelaniya here in Sri Lanka. I did management and IT. I was the top of my batch.
Studies gig.
Okay.
And my uni, my department rather, we were at the Department of Industrial Management. It was a smaller department. We had a very intimate, small crowd. This was the place that really opened my eyes to diverse perspectives. Because from my childhood to up until then, my entire background was very much Sinhala Buddhist. My friends were that, my family was that, my neighbors were that. Like my school was that. I had a very narrow perspective towards, because your background creates your perspective, right? And therefore, I had different biases, I would say, based on those perspectives. When I came to uni, it was that place where I felt, oh my God, because I had people coming from different walks of life, from different parts of the country, from different religions. And I was like, oh my God, there's so much more. And I was able to, because again, I had a bit of self-awareness. I was able to sit and figure out, oh my God, these people go through so much of struggles that I was never even aware of, that I didn't have to go through, but it's a lived reality in their lives. So in terms of diversity, this was the place that really opened up my eyes. And it was also the place, now, by that time, I was, in theory, my English was good, right? I was like the grammar Nazi. But again, spoken English was not great. I'm an introvert. So any form of social interaction is very difficult and draining for me. Every time I tell this to somebody, now you're looking at me like that, they're like, so you think you're an introvert? And I'm like, I am an introvert. You know what I mean? So spoken English, speaking in front of a group of people was, anyway, it was terrifying. It was scary. But then when you are in uni, you have to do group projects, you have to do presentations. It was like a thing. So regardless of how scary it felt, you had to do it. So that was like my practice ground, a start of my spoken English journey, I think. The other thing would be my uni was a place that brought me my, what I call my tribe, my inner circle, my group of friends that I still, after I don't know, about 10, very old, about 10 plus years, I think, we are still together, we are still strong. And this group of people was my safety net, among many other things. And university was the place that really created that bond, because it's important that you find your people. I didn't have that support, or that I didn't find my people in my smaller school. I had a small circle of friends in my school, but university was that place for me. So I'm very grateful. So university will play a big role if there's a movie about me. And then I think the next one would be my first place of work. So in my 4th year of uni, I was offered this opportunity to join the apparel industry. And that was where I was introduced to Toastmasters, because they had a Toastmasters club in the corporate, in the office. And I remember that my immediate line manager at the time handed over the application, because it was partly paid by the company also at the time. He handed over the application and was like, this is going to help you register. And that was the place that really kickstarted my public speaking journey, because I was still really bad at it. But I think it was a smaller club. Everybody, and that's a good thing about Toastmasters, right? Everybody come there knowing that they are here to learn. So it's a very empowering platform. I think people believed in me so much that at one point I was like, okay, I must be good. You know what I mean? So there was so much of opportunities to just practice and rehearse and get feedback. And it felt less scary to practice there. And then you had different competitions again. So there are different levels of competitions. There's one called humorous speech contest, which was like my favorite.
Your jam.
Yeah, my jam. So I liked that, and I won the divisional contest, I think, in like few consecutive years. My peak in my Toastmasters career, because I'm not active anymore, was when I won the divisional contest and I took part in the district contest at Chennai, which was a really good moment. I was very happy with my performance. That was like a very good like a thing to remember, right? So Toastmasters was a big thing. And every time I would go up on speak, because Toastmasters is not exactly as stand-up comedy, there are differences, right? But every time I go on stage, most of my friends, there was specifically this one friend who would constantly be like, you have to try stand-up. You would be the Sri Lankan Ellen. I'm not Sri Lankan Ellen. I don't want to be the Sri Lankan Ellen. But she would constantly say, like, you should try stand-up. But I was like, it was work. And at that time, I would also not... I haven't watched a lot of stand-up at the time, because Toastmasters is a little different journey. But then COVID hit. COVID was a terrible time for most of us, especially for, I think, extroverts. Are you an extrovert?
I could be.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Because I think from what I saw, extroverts was really struggling because they couldn't meet their friends, they couldn't do their thing. Us introverts were like thriving. We were like, so much of energy. What do we do with this? So I think for most introverts, their creative energy was also at a peak during COVID. So I was living with my, so my sisters came to live with us. So my niece was with us. She was very small, and something funny would happen every single day. She would say something stupid or like funny or cutesy. My mom would respond in a funny way. So there was a lot of laughter. So I was like, okay, let me just build a little thing out of this. And I would write a little like dialogues, small comedy bits on my Facebook account. Like like in a dialogue, like a small story. And people would really find it funny and people would relate. They would tell in the comment section what they experienced during COVID. So it was like a thing. People really embraced it. And I went by the hashtag of Tani's Originals because that was happening in my life. So at the end of, I think, COVID, again, there was a, how everybody's in home, they can't move out. My school, OGA, organized a virtual talent show. It was like a big thing open to all girls. And they had a segment there for stand-up comedy. I was like, okay, what the hell? You're doing it from home. Let's give it a shot. So I wrote a script. I did a thing. I got selected for the first round. Did another one. And I won that. And then that was like proper motivation. So I launched my YouTube channel. And I sort of established myself as, okay, stand-up comedy. Let's do it. That happened. And then I think, apart from a few things that happened here and there, my TikTok launch would be a big thing. Because this was again, so I was really supported by lots of my friends in this journey, right? There were somebody who always sort of pushed me, do it. So the TikTok was also, because I'm an introvert, I don't like, it's difficult for me to get so much of social attraction. So I was avoiding TikTok for the longest time, but there was this friend who was like, you're going to get into TikTok. So he created the TikTok account for me. He like edited the first few bits of mine. And so I entered TikTok, right? And then how this whole publicity thing began. You probably know this, I'm just going to say. And then this Avisavel Ratnapura joke, which became a really famous thing. God knows why. It was in my TikTok. Some page, I can't remember the page, but out of good intentions, he grabbed it and he posted it in his Facebook, this thing. And then Facebook went crazy. Facebook like, So people from Avisavala started feeling bad. People from Ranthambore started feeling bad. People from Colombo started feeling bad. People in Feta started feeling bad. And I was like, bro, I'm just saying, you know. So it just I don't know. It just blew up for no real reason, I'm telling you. And then it was a very new and uncomfortable experience for me because I had never experienced that. So I had to learn how to deal with situations like that because, okay, now it's going to happen. So people started following me, like so much of reach, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, okay, what do I do? Right? It was like, I don't know what to do now kind of a moment. But I did have a lot of support from people that I didn't even know. And that sort of also gave me this realization of, majority is good. When you have the net effect, when you consider the net effect, it's always a positive thing. So which was like, okay, let's do it. And then the second thing would be the Christmas picture. So I have had, it's like seasonal shitstorms, right? There was a thing, we might talk about it as we go along in the chat. But again, a group of people, it's just the judgment that you have, the stereotype. And I'm thinking, and I'm saying this with so much confidence, that this is a small group. This is not the majority. But it's a stereotype that they have built in their heads about me, which I have nothing to do about. And then they would just take that and run. So there was a shitstorm scenario there. We can include that in the movie. And then, of course, I think a big part of the movie would be where my fellow colleague went to jail because of a joke that she did. And the lessons or the experience that as the other woman comedian in the team, what I had to go through might be a good sensual bit to be included in the movie. But yeah, if somebody wants to make a movie about my journey, it will mostly be about self-realizations and how I learned to figure things out as I go forward and how I learned to sort of be compassionate about myself so that I can be a little more compassionate about other people. And I think it'll be a really worthwhile movie if somebody has any ideas, I'm saying.
Please invite me to the red carpet.
Right.
I'd love to
Of
check
course,
this out.
Of course.
For a intelligent, competitive, mature, and young person.
I'm not very
like
young. I'm
you,
telling you, I'm not very young.
in my mind, I'm
Okay.
old, right? So, what are you most proud of your life so far?
I'm genuinely proud of the journey because I'm somebody who, it took me some time, but I'm at a place where I believe it happens for a reason. And when you look back and look at the key milestone, and maybe some of the milestone wouldn't have looked as comforting as you wanted it to be, but when you look back and see, you understand why it happened, and you understand, okay, these are the learnings that it taught me. And I'm 100% proud of going through all of that and being here today and still being soft and gentle and not letting some of the bitter experiences change my personality, change the good in me. So if you ask me what I'm proud of the journey. I'm proud of where I am and the person I have become. And I'm proud of the person I'm trying to become. For my nieces, for my nephews, and for my family, for people around me. I'm proud of that.
So you want to inspire people. You want to be a role model.
I do want to inspire people.
These are beautiful things for a stand-up comedian who brings, in my mind, I watch lots of stand-up because I like joy in my life. Sometimes I don't remember their lines, but I remember how those lines made me feel.
Right.
I remember the depth of the messaging sometimes.
Right.
My career as a stand-up comedian will go nowhere because my jokes are about 3 years.
Tried?
I have.
Oh my God, have you?
Someone recently was chatting with me about the Oscars and I said, oh yeah, Chris Rock, he was there. He was starstruck, literally. And they're like, yeah, 3 years too late, man. So, my jokes never land. But what I want to understand from you is who inspires you?
Okay. Yeah. I think the inspiration bit that you spoke about earlier, I think it's important. And it was, I didn't get into this thinking, I'm going to inspire people. It was never that. But once I started, especially after I started on TikTok, there were so many young girls who were they were mostly fond of my English. But still, they were like, I want to speak like you. I want to learn how to learn. How do you start stand up? How do you pick up the courage to go on the stage? Blah, blah. I've also had, I have had many comments, but this is something that really stayed with me. There was a dad who had commented saying he wants his daughter to be confident and outspoken like me when she grows. So coming from a dad, that's really hits home. So I think, especially maybe this country or for little girls, it lack role models. So if I can be that role model for at least 5 people, great. Who inspired me in stand-up? So again, I was not a stand-up fan when I started my career, right? I was into Toastmasters. But after I got into the field, I would then watch to just learn. And then Trevor Noah was one of my biggest role models. He is somebody I draw a lot of inspiration from, even because his comedy genre, his style, the way of delivery, even as a person, he is somebody that I really look up to. And then more recently, we have Vir from India, big fan. I also follow maybe a little less known names like Kalingan Mitra, Michael McIntyre, of course, is big. There was somebody called Justin McKenney, Phil Henley, hilarious, and then the Finnish comedian Ismo.
Yeah.
So I find them super relatable. Their content. Those are a few that I really draw inspiration from. As a female comedian, I follow Taylor Tomlinson.
Yeah.
Super relatable. So yeah.
What message do you want to say through your comedy, through your stand-up?
Comedy also, like any other art form, has different genres, right? Not every comedy would have a message. The genre that I try to follow is more into alternative comedy, observational comedy, clean intellectual comedy. So for me, like you correctly said, stand-up comedy is more than laughs. I want to leave something with the audience. And the message, I mean, it varies from a set to set, but the genre itself is essentially, it would try and challenge the current socio-political norms. It would push that question on, are we doing the right thing? Is this the best way we can do it? Is this the right thing to do? So because stand-up comedy especially, I believe, has so much potential to really talk about any serious or even taboo topic in a very light-hearted manner. And people essentially would not find it, technically wouldn't find it offensive. But you can really share it. They would laugh together because we are doing the wrong thing. That's sort of the idea. So message is, it's different. I have used my stand-up comedy career to talk about different things, different facets of social, political, gender-related stuff. But yeah.
You need courage to be a stand-up comedian. I don't want to spark controversy because apparently if I speak about religion or Christmas, it's another wave. Fortunately or unfortunately, in my research, I found that stand-up comedy has a patron saint because it's an old Catholic thing. Okay? I won't tell you who the patron saint is because I don't want to spark so much of things. I saw a Pirit Nula on your hand also, so I'll be very respectful. But this patron saint, the story is that he was also persecuted for creating social unrest.
Right.
And the punishment the patron saint of comedy was given was they were burning him alive. So he was on a skillet.
Okay.
And they were burning him.
Right. Like all those pictures.
Correct. Right?
Okay.
For doing something wrong.
Right.
So while on the skillet and they were burning him.
Did he make a joke? Oh my gosh.
After about 40 seconds, he says, "Excuse me, this side's done, flip me over." Where do you find courage in whatever you face? Where do you find courage to do what you do?
Oh my God. Okay, he's hilarious. I would never be that. But I think there were quite a few facets to that question. The Christmas thing you started off with. The funny thing is, I'm not even like a Catholic or a Christian. I'm a Buddhist. So that's a funny thing. So what I really essentially understood from specifically that bit, and I haven't, it was just a picture and had some caption to say Merry Christmas or something like that. What I realized, what that really taught me was people really don't care what the truth is. People really don't want to know. They just want to take something that somebody somewhere said and they just want to run with it. And so that was I don't know. It was a lesson, I think, for me also, where the more I tried to make sense of what was happening, or the more I tried to sort of prove my innocence, which I didn't try to do, but it didn't matter because they didn't want to understand. They just wanted to run with it. So social media, I think we might talk about it in detail later on. But social media, I think we'll talk about social media later on.
We'll get into it now,
yeah,
if you want to.
Yeah. No, I think social media is a wonderful place because I think because of social media now, the common people have so much of power, so much of visibility, access to information, access to other opportunities. And it's great because people, before the time of social media, people didn't have that. But it can very quickly turn into a really horrible, ugly space if you are not using it carefully. Because there is zero consequence to what you say. So these people who would on social media, on the internet, would say the most horrible things about you, that they met you face to face, they would never say anything remotely close to that because there is no consequence, right? So these are those are a few things that I've reflected on and I've learned through everything that was happening, especially when it comes to this religion. People, again, this is a very small group of people, I'm telling you. They have created a stereotype in their head to think that I am so and so. There are so many I'm a Christian, I'm a Catholic, I am a homosexual, and I'm like, what else? Like so many baseless stereotypes that they have built in their own heads, and whatever they see in me will be colored through that lens, and that's on them. That's not on me. How do I find courage? That's a very difficult question, I think, because now for me, stand-up has never been a thing where I felt like, okay, I have to do stand-up. I have never been in this art form or in this industry because I felt like, okay, I want to be this hero where I'm going to now save the nation. I will give my life to it. I'm not that. I don't. Because in my life, my first and foremost priority is myself. So my safety, my peace of mind is number one. If it comes to, this is why after my fellow colleague went to jail, we all stepped out of social media. We laid low. It was a really unpleasant, ugly, terrifying, pressing, anxious phase of all of our life. Because nobody wants to go to jail for a joke, for a piece of art that you performed. But once things settled down, when we came back on social media, when I came back on social media, because as the other woman in the team, some people, this is why, so people don't want to know. Some people thought it was me who went to jail. Some people were looking forward for me going to jail next because they felt like it was like a woman thing. Now women are going to jail. I was like, why? So it was a lot of unpleasant. It was an unpleasant time, but it also. So I finished what I was saying. So once things settled down, after we came on social media, after I came on social media, this mob that was spreading hatred, they were like, "Oh, you're back. You ran away. No, you got scared and ran away." I'm like, "Yeah, of course. Are you crazy? Of course I was scared. I am not gonna be this, again, this heroic person who would be like, okay, I'll fight until the end. I'll go to jail for my piece of art. No. If there is even the slightest threat to my personal safety or my peace of mind, I will not do it because I don't live off of this, right?
And we've been doing that for centuries. That's why we have a fight or flight.
Exactly.
And we flight.
Yeah. And of course I was scared. I mean, wouldn't you? Right? So it has how do I find courage? I don't think it is that. Because if I at one point feel like this is not worth it, so that is something I've taught myself. I am now, because I used to be I used to fight a lot in comments. I used to try and prove my point, knowing that I was not going to change their point of view, and it took some time and a little growing up to figure out this is not worth it. So for me, I don't think I even want to be courageous when we talk about that. I am now very conscious of my energy. I'm like, is it worth it? If not, okay, you do you. I'm going to be me. But going back to that, the ugly face, which taught me a lot of things. Good thing that came out of that was I had a lot of support. So from my family, especially from my parents, I know it was not easy for them because they're not used to. Stand-up is a new thing for the entire country, I think.
How do you tell your parents?
Yeah.
Going back to your friend Trevor Noah, who went and told apparently his grandma that he was going to be a stand-up comedian, and she went, clown boy.
Exactly.
How do you approach this? Mom, I'm going to be a stand-up comedian.
I did not tell them that. I didn't tell them. I told them that I have so they knew that I was into Toastmasters. It was easier for them to fathom. I would always tell them I have a show.
What are you showing?
Right. And then once I had a recording, I showed them the recording of the full set. And they were like, oh, you're very funny, and now they can relate. But when this thing happened, because they are very religious people, they're very close to the temple and all of that. And I can imagine the amount of pressure that they had because it went out. That's the other thing. This was a phase where I completely lost my faith in media. I and my friends, my close friends, we were talking about this. Now we know the moment media says something, we're very skeptical. Is this true? Because we know what happened and we know how they portrayed it. So the world will hear what they portray, right? The world will not postulate like what actually happened. So I know that it would have been a very difficult time for my parents, but they did not, even from a word, put any pressure on me. They would just, I remember I went home, it's all very scary. I went home because people were calling them, big thing. We had a big dane thing. I didn't go to the dane, I went after. And when I was about to come back, my dad, the only thing he said was, things will settle down, don't worry. That was the only thing we ever spoke about that particular thing. They didn't question me, because I was already going through so much. If I had to sit down and explain them, this is what's happening, it would have really taken it all. But them, even the two sisters, they would always be like, are you okay? Do you need any help? Things will settle. My two brother-in-laws, they were really helpful. My friends at work, now these are people, my close friends and my friends at work. So moments like this really tell you, right, who these people are. And I would, throughout my life, I will live paying this forward, and I will eternally be grateful to these people because they held on to me when they didn't have to. So little learnings, little blessings like that come through cases of adversity, and you also learn, okay, I thought this was a friend, but look at how they're now commenting about this without even knowing what happened. So things like realizations come through, and you always learn to pick up the learnings and then move forward. So courage, I don't know. I don't know if that's a battle I want to fight. I keep that courage to put into things that I want to fight.
Thank you for sharing that story with me.
No. Really relevant.
But thank you for sharing that story. I don't want to move past without acknowledging the people that do really good art, the people that give other comedians and creatives a space. I don't know them. I have spent hours watching their stuff. I've spent hours enjoying their stuff. I've spent hours enjoying their investigative journalism. And I hope that people like that have the motivation, the courage, the tenacity to keep going in the face of all of these things. And I wanted to say that without moving past, because I just want to acknowledge what they're doing.
Yeah.
The reason I asked about courage is a lot of the social media backlash. No one's teaching you or training you how to use social media. Australia has just created a bill where if you're less than 13 years, it's an offense for a social media company to let you have an account.
Yeah.
Because, it's 18 before you learn to drive, and you have to go for driving classes to do it. There is so much dopamine, so much hatred coming through all of these things.
Because you think it's the and this whole
No, keep going.
This whole whataboutism.
Yeah.
Little kids. I think most of these the hate spreaders are little kids. Because from the way they articulate their comments, it's very clear that, again, they have no indication of the consequence that it's going to have. They're doing it just because they can. And all these, cyberbullying, like any other form of bullying, it comes from a deep sense of insecurity, right? But people hurt people. So because you can't feel good about yourself, you try to do that by putting the other person down. So this is the same thing we see in schools, right? You have the big bully because they don't have the maturity to understand, okay, what I'm doing is wrong. So then like an adult has to intervene and, teach them something. But in social media, what happens is you don't have that consequence. So they would just say, if you feel like you want to say something harsh, mean, vindictive, I don't know, threatening to somebody that you really know, just because you can, then you need to understand there is something wrong there, right? So yeah.
What supports are available for a young woman going through something like that?
So when you say support, especially...
You have your friends, you have your family around you. That's a given. That's your circle.
Right.
But other than that, is there counseling? Is there guidance? What's available there?
Counseling and any form of mental health support, especially in Sri Lanka, is very low, very less. There's also a ton of stigma and taboo connected to that. So if it was happening to a little girl, chances are highly unlikely they would do that. Some schools now have counselors. I don't know how qualified or trained they are. But now I think, I am not sure if this is connected to social media, but government has introduced about 2 hotlines for women and children. 109 and 1938, I think, where they can call and complain about some distress or harassment that they're going through. I don't know if this applies for social media. I think mostly social media, then you will have to go through the police, and the CID is handling most of those cases. But then those things take a lot of time. And again, there is a whole lot of stigma connected to police. Oh my God, my daughter went to police. Yes. Because the moment you go to police, because I was I had to report a case of theft once. And the amount of harassment almost that I went through until I went with a lawyer, then they take you seriously. So systems, there is a lot of system change that needs to happen in terms of support. I don't know enough to say if there is a particular avenue.
Okay. I've lived in Sri Lanka till I was about 30. I still have close connections to the country. I still have a lot of love. I'm still identified all over the world as a Sri Lankan. Because that's my roots. That's where I'm from. That's who I identify as.
Exactly. So even for me, I have a lot of love to the country. So when people are like, he hates country, I'm like...
Where are you coming from?
Right?
But I'm going to share this with you because I consider you an intellect. I was never the top of my batch. I wanted to be. I was just never that smart. I never won all the competitions I took part in, although I really wanted to, secretly. But I wrote a piece around gastric band surgery. And I'll share that with you. It's a deep thought, okay? So roll with me. A lot of people, gastric band surgery is when you're fat, and it's not a tummy tap, it's a little deeper than that. They do some surgery, so your cravings for food reduce. It's a very dangerous surgery, and people die from it. But an unintended consequence of it is that people who have successful surgery, their suicide risk goes up by 60%. Because when you're upset and stressed, you used to eat. Now you took away that coping mechanism. When I look closely at social media trolls, and I've done lots of work with lots of my friends who are in creative industry, either burlesque dancers or people who do natural art drawing or life models, a lot of them say, hey, there's no protections on social media. If somebody DMs you a threat, you can't do anything about it because absolutely no law. I don't know what the laws are currently in Sri Lanka. I think you can go to the CID, but you can't do anything. If I send you a threat, the social media platform will say it's a direct message. We can't do anything with it. But if you take away society dealing with their own problems by jumping on that, I don't know if society is mature enough to not have that platform. Because like you rightly said, a lot of them don't know the true story. A lot of them don't know what actually happened. And I don't think even 1% care about what's the pressure that you're putting on somebody else's mental health. What is that, if that is even remotely true, what does that tell you about society around you? And what does that give you an opportunity to support young women that you are in your life or that you work with?
It's a very deep question, actually. Something came to my mind as you were talking about the social media trolls and how they don't technically know what they're doing. I will share this story. I don't know if it's relevant to your question. I tend to say things that are irrelevant to the question most of the time.
I love what you're sharing.
So very recently, to say your perspective is the amount of learning, experience, knowledge that you have. That essentially changes your perspective towards anything. Which is why I think most of these trolls, had they have better exposed to things, had they learned things better or differently, their perspective will be completely different. It's a place of not knowing where all this hate and bitterness comes from. Now, for a very good example, very recently I had a food quality issue with a restaurant that I really like. So I put up a post about it. It was about a food delay and the food quality. And the restaurant immediately looked into it. They took action. They apologized within the next day. There were two men. One man thought, I kind of deserved it because I was spending this much of money on food, my food. Okay. And then there was another man. See, it's always you wait until somebody throws the first rock because then you're not the only bad guy. Somebody responded to that comment saying, bro, she is just trying to be extremely posh. She came to this Colombo school, this Visaka, from after grade 5 scholarship. That's why. Now I'm sitting here, I'm trying to be like, what? So I am not in I think even a position to fathom how that thought process worked over there. So there is still, I think what I'm trying to say is your background really creates your perspective. So there are still groups of people, so including students, including teachers, parents, adults, who would believe grade 1 students are better than those who come after from grade 6 after the scholarship exam. There still is a group of people who would think that the scholars, the students who pass grade 5 scholarship and come to school are better than those who come from grade 1. Neither is true. It's just your perspective. It's something that you have in your head. Don't push that on other people because this is from your level of understanding, on your level of education and your level of learning. So I think you have to be at one point, if you are to go anywhere forward, from this end of the spectrum, you have to realize, okay, it's them problem. They are coming from what they know, what they understand. So it shouldn't be my problem. I shouldn't try and change them. If you, from that end of the spectrum, if you want to really make any change or any progress, I think it starts with a bit of self-awareness and humility to understand, okay, this might not be true. This might be just a stereotype or a bias that I have from my learning.
It also is showing me your maturity. This is why I'm building up to my next question. I've forgotten whatever I've written to ask you. Right. Because what I want to ask you is where you're getting your maturity from. I love this subtle way You told your beautiful Sri Lankan parents, this is how I clown around. Okay?
Yeah.
You told them I've got shows. You then showed them what you did. Great approach. If you had an opportunity to mentor a young person in the creative arts, is that something you'll be keen or interested in doing? Because you've got some wonderful maturity or at least some steps on how to do it. Do what you want to do in a way that fits into, I'm going to say, our society. Where did you learn that from?
So you had two questions. Am I willing to mentor somebody? Maybe. I also would find that extremely stressful. So I don't know.
Mentoring someone is a two-way journey. They're learning from you, you're learning from them.
And then I might feel like, no, they're my responsibility.
Sure.
So I don't know.
So parental instinct can't.
Yeah.
You can't have that.
I know. Are you telling me this?
You're very young to have this.
Hey, I have 4 nieces and nephews.
Yeah.
I am all...
all parental instinct. Okay.
I am like, all... If you look at my content, like the things I post on stories mainly, they would be about gender equity, of course. They would be about mental health. They would be about gentle parenting and children's rights, because I consider them to be a very voiceless group of people. So they need an adult to speak on behalf of them. So I'm all about parental that.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, coming back to the question. What was the question? Mentoring. Mentoring and how I sort of learned to
be so mature, be so eloquent in how you frame your ambition. Because I can clearly see you've got an ambition, you got something you want to do. Yeah. But you're very respectful in your community, in your society. Yeah. Hey, I'm going to say this to mom and dad like this. I'm going to say this to my friends like this. So you got a structure in that.
Yeah, because again, I think even when I started this journey, the genre that I selected, I was very convinced I'm going to do clean intellectual comedy. So I very rarely use vulgar language. I very rarely use dick jokes. Not to put it down. It works for some groups of people and they do it, and it's a mix, right? But this is what works for me. And this is what I want to do. I want to make meaningful jokes. So sometimes my jokes don't punch as something else would punch. But that's okay, because this is what I want to do. And I've also made a very conscious decision, and because I consider myself a very spiritual person. I wouldn't know very spiritual. I'm a spiritual person. Let's take away we are very. And so I'm a Buddhist, and I have found peace and comfort in my belief system when I needed it. So I know what it means to somebody else. So I would absolutely never put down any religious philosophy. Because why? What am I going to get out of that, right? What am I going to get by proving the God isn't there? What does that do? Nothing. What I have done in my performances is to call out on people, regardless what the belief system that they're connected to, call out on people who are using this religion as a tool to gain power, to spread hatred, to create misinformation, disinformation, all of that. So I would call out the person. And people would be like, oh, she's like against the religion, blah, blah, blah. So that's their problem. I have never, absolutely, because I am a believer. I believe that I'm connected to the universe, that I have a bigger power that's watching over me. I believe that. So I don't want to attack someone else's faith. Because why? What am I going to gain out of that? So I have always been, I think it's my value system where I want to be like, I am not here to fight, because I don't have the energy to do that. And I'm really tired of people thinking that I am here to fight. I am not. That's why I really am very conscious about where I spend my energy, because if I am drained for nothing, then why? Yeah.
I love that you know yourself so well. But you also have to, like, if you want the lifestyle of a stand-up comedian, that doesn't come with just performing on a stage.
Yeah.
That comes with a few gigs, that comes with some prospecting, that comes with some light hustle to get into those shows.
Yeah.
I watched one of your open mics, I think one of your first open mics, where you were talking about not political messaging, you were talking about your little niece,
Right.
you were talking about your wonderful sense of direction. Struck a chord with me, right? And that's why I picked this venue also, so
Yeah.
that you can find it
Very
easily.
straightforward.
I just made sure that there was no pothole close by,
Thank
so
you.
you can call
I
and tell me
appreciate
you're standing there.
I appreciate it.
Right? So that's the level of impact your one stand-up open mic had on me, that I remember it that well. What's the journey like for somebody who wants to be a stand-up comedian, or somebody who looks at you and go, "Oi, she's got a platform, she's done some shows." What has that journey been? Has somebody walked up to you and go, "Oh my God, you're stunningly intelligent. Here's a mic." How does that work?
Okay, so for me, I think I was extremely lucky in one sense, because I had the talent show, which sort of gave me a platform, and I just took it. But thereafter, it was always friends or people who reached out to me. So my first ever stand up was online, which was not very comfortable. Like you are speaking to a little lens. But I think I got that again through a friend who sort of had recommended me, and people reached out. And then I am now a part of 2 comedy clubs. So that's how we usually get gigs when you're performing as a group. So even that, the bit that you saw, again, they had called out for people to come in. They are having an open mic. This was also like shared with me by one of my friends. So it was always friends and sort of connections. It's all meant to be, I think. If it's I've never been like, okay, where can I perform? Do I have like a platform? I have genuinely never done that. Because again, I'm very tired. So I'm like, can't. So it was always like opportunities came on my way and I took them. So after that, the open mic bit, they were happy with my performance, so I got connected with their comedy club. There is also a more English and Tamil comedy club that I am connected to. Again, that I got connected to through a friend, and things fall in place. That's why I say I have been extremely lucky when it comes to this thing. And then my friend, it was always somebody that pushed me. My friend pushed me to TikTok, so now through Instagram, Facebook, and all of that, people contact me directly for shows, mostly for corporate shows. And then once you do something, when you post it, word of mouth, so people see it, and then you get called. I have almost never reached out to somebody and be like, "Can I perform?" It was always because this is not my full-time job. I have a day job, which will always be my priority because this doesn't pay.
That
Really, you can't. And when people are like, "Are you a full-time comedian?" I'm like, "No."
I need to eat.
Yeah, I have certain things that I need to do. So my job is always my priority. So then I also have to see where I can slot these things in. So yeah.
Let's talk about pressure.
Yeah.
I told you, it's not going to get me in trouble also, but let's do it. I told you I work in government.
Yes.
There's rules around what I can and can't say.
Yeah.
But I also want to share stories of people that I think are wonderful, that other people need to hear about. Sometimes that has pressures around, hey, why are you doing this? Is that a commercial interest? And things like that. How do you balance being a stand-up comedian and having a corporate job? What do you do to make sure that there is no misunderstanding in that space?
Right. So first of all, the work that I do and the things that I talk about in my stand-up are connected. So there's no, I don't say things that are problematic because this is coming from me and this is what I want to do. And my work is also something that I am extremely passionate about. It's something that brings me joy and purpose. So both of things, they are aligned. They are not contradictory. I am very, and I have to be, I'm very open and clear in terms of communication with my boss and my team. And my team, like my management. So as long as my office, my boss have been, I don't really, this is not because they pay me the money and the salary, but they have been there, have always been going over and beyond to help me and support me, especially through those chaotic times. From my end, I ensure that there is no conflict of interest. And that is all that is. As in, as long as there is no conflict of interest, I'm good because at the end of the day, that is what it is. As long as you have no conflict of interest, as long as you don't have contradictory messages or like intentions, it's all meaningful work. And most of us, especially at my workplace, we are into art, theater, that kind of creative space. And I think we understand what it adds on to, how much it adds on to a person's personality. Because through all of that work, there is really growth. There is a lot of perspective. There is a lot of understanding and, again, growth, I would say, confidence building. So it definitely helped. And I think that is an understanding we have in the team, in the company. So it has never troubled me in any sense, for which I'm eternally grateful. Because, again, if it was a question between this, I would definitely have to leave. As a person, the creator also, it's your responsibility to ensure that work doesn't get impacted in whichever way. That's why my first priority is, of course, always the work. It's a personal discipline as well, where the company doesn't have a space to be like, you are not doing this because you're doing this.
And I only ask the question because a lot of creatives have to have a full-time job.
Yeah.
Creative industry doesn't always pay that well.
At all.
So sometimes it's like, somebody asked me, is that your get rich slow project? I'm like, I don't have time. Slow doesn't really work for me. But it's important for creatives to understand that you can do a full-time job, something you're really passionate about, but still indulge in the arts, still indulge in something that keeps your soul alive and active. Tell me from your experience, from your journey in comedy, in stand-up, has there ever been instances where you've now done it a few times, a few hundred times even, that you're more comfortable communicating something on stage that you can't communicate that same message in person?
I think mostly it's the other way around.
Okay.
Because nobody wants to go to jail.
No, not today.
Right? No, I mean, because I think it has come to a point, and I tell my friends this all the time, it has come to a point where I'm now thinking, is this the right thing to do? Is there a better way to say it? Because you're watching what you say all the time. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to roasting, I think when you're on the stage, you have a better immunity because you can't just say something mean to the person's face. But when you're on the stage with a mic, it's like it's always a joke.
Did you do lots of crowd work?
I don't do it a lot, but sometimes I do. As in, mostly I plan for it if I do it.
Okay.
But I also have to say, especially I think it's a Sri Lanka thing. I don't know. People are really bad at taking roles. People would love it as long as it's not about you.
Right.
I had a friend who literally in text told me, who is into stand-up and all of that, literally in text told me I would love a good roast. And I roasted him once, like a little bit. And he didn't speak to me for about 3 days. And he was like, why did you do it? And I was like, it's difficult. So, but I think that would be the only time where I would say something on stage and not to your face. But yeah.
So Russell Peters coined, somebody going to get hurt real bad. And are you going to coin, I don't want to go to jail?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
With that framing, is that context limiting your creativity? Or is it getting you to be more creative because you got to find a different way to say the same thing?
I would think it is limiting because I would sometimes write chunks and be like, nope. you know? Yeah, because again, I'm not here to, I'm not here to save the nation, to put some sense into people's heads at the expense of my personal safety or peace. So I think it is limiting, unfortunately.
Do you take joy in your comedy? Do you take joy in your performances in terms of bringing some lighthearted moments? Because you also have a corporate job. You also have the stresses of life, whether people want to question your religion, your sexuality, whatever that may be. Do you take joy in bringing happiness to people?
I do. I think that is one of the reasons why I keep doing what I do, because it adds a little color to my life also. And I think especially when you are in an art form like this, you have, and because stand-up comedy is very tricky. It's unlike any other art form, I would say. There are similarities, but there are major differences because you get to know in real time what the audience response is. And for most people, they would judge the success of their set based on the audience response, which is technically the case. But it's difficult, because there is, just like any other art form, there is so much of work and effort and energy, conscious thought that goes into building that set, to figuring out, okay, what's the message, where should be the punchlines, how can I make the audience interactions, so how can I make it more relatable? There's so much of work and prep that goes into it that people don't see. That's why I hate when people are like, tell me a joke, and I'm like, it doesn't work like that. And so because of that, I have made my piece, I am trying at least to make it about myself. Did I say everything I wanted to say in the exact way I wanted to say when I was prepping for it? Did I have fun on the stage? Did I do a good job? And then that self-satisfaction would be the success of my set for me. Because sometimes it is very possible where you would deliver a really good, well-articulated, good joke with great punchline, perfect timing, but people would still not get it. It's their loss. You can't call it a bad set because of that. It's the amount of fun that you have on the stage yourself. I think for me, that's the gauge of success.
It's metrics. We spoke about metrics. We spoke about my channel. We spoke about views. For me, that doesn't matter. For me, what matters is the metrics that I was able to meet someone new. I was able to share their story. I was able to tell my 2 children, hey, we're on holiday, but can you give me a couple of hours to actually meet someone that might one day inspire you? Because what you learn in school is useful up to a particular point. Life experiences, I think, are more important. So I think metrics are important.
For sure.
You touched on something very, very relevant that I saw when I did my research on you. And I don't mean any disrespect to anyone that's ever interviewed you.
Right.
But I have seen people interviewing you and asking you to tell them a joke. And I am going, oh my God, it's not like Taylor Swift singing a chorus. But you, on the 2 or 3 occasions I saw that, you handled it very well. Did you go for media training, or are you just a lot more situationally aware that, hey, this person may not really understand the art form? Where does that come from?
I think that's maybe the corporate training. I don't know. Yeah. But I think the last interview that I had when they're like, can you tell us a joke? I was like, no. I was like, and no, I now have this joke. I think you heard this in my initial open mic. I now have this like under my sleeve. If somebody asks it, like, here, like, here, take it. The skin color joke.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's like my go-to now. If somebody asks it, like here.
Okay.
Yeah. You remember that joke?
I do. And I'm not going to ask you to tell me a joke, okay? I want to respect you much more than that as a creative. Does that mean that even media mindsets that are interviewing a stand-up comedian need to evolve a little more?
Yeah, 100%. So that's why, as in, again, no disrespect to anyone that I have been in these interviews with, but people don't know. There is still so much, like, little in terms of knowledge and understanding for people to understand what is this art form. Because the set they will see will be very little, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And it's not just the person woke up in the morning and be like, I have a gig today, let me just go and say something. It's not like that. Because all of us, one, we do 2-3 jobs. So I have comedian friends who are not in corporate, so they will have other jobs. All of us are really living busy lives. We have other things to do. So in the middle of all of that, we do find time to sit down, think about. There is always, I think it's very rarely I don't think it happens with any comedian where you just go up on the stage and say something. There is so much of thought, from anybody too. There is so much of thinking, articulation, changing, because then you have a bit, maybe you go to open mic, maybe you rehearse it on your own, and then you hear yourself and be like, it can be a funnier. Then you change it. So much of work and thinking and effort and energy that goes into it that people really don't seem to understand, right? And it's not like a song, because when you get a good song done, you can sing it, play it over and over and over again. With a comedy bit, you can't do that. Most comedians, we use our material for sure. But I feel when you say when you say that to somebody also, that we reuse material, it's like, oh, really? Because, duh. Of course. Because it is so much of work and people just don't seem to understand that. And it's unfortunate because you can't tell somebody that, of course, I use my material. Because they're like, you're not posting stuff on social media. And you're like, yeah, because then you can't reuse it. You reuse it. I'm like, yeah.
Should there be some education around stand-up comedy? Because I've done a little bit of research to even look at people like Jimmy Carr going, hey, these new kids like Matt Ruff, why is he more popular than I am? And Jimmy Carr goes, because I don't do lots of crowd work. And what's getting more popular is the crowd work. Because crowd work. Your set doesn't get touched.
Exactly.
You can tour a show. Joe Rogan's toured his comedy show from the mothership around America for 7 years.
Yeah.
And it's the same show.
Yeah.
He just make it better. He said those lines. He's done that timing again and again and again. Do people need to understand two things? A, what does a comedian go through to have to come up with a set? And how do we enjoy comedy?
Yeah.
How are we going to do this?
I don't know.
How are you going to help do this? Because I think it's important to understand how to enjoy a set.
Yeah. I actually don't know how to do it because it's a form of art. I actually don't know. So if you take theater, people understand there are so many rehearsals. Maybe because it comes from the school. Because in schools you do have music, theater, blah, blah, blah. And people understand, okay, it's so much of work. People don't have stand-up at schools. Maybe I think stand-up needs to get a bit more recognition as another part of performing art. I think that's the part that people don't understand. That is why people get so offended by something that somebody says on stage. Ismo puts this beautifully. I don't know if you have heard this line where he says, if I go on the stage, I get the mic and be like, I can't remember the exact words, but something around, I took my gun, I put a bullet in someone's head, and now he's dead. That'll be a confession if a stand-up comedian. But then if I add, mama, ooh, that'll be like a well-applauded song.
Yeah.
So it doesn't happen in any other art form. But when it comes to stand-up comedy, people think, oh, he means it. Oh, she means it. People don't understand it's another form of performing arts. And I genuinely don't know how or where to begin. Educating.
Because I think that education's needed. Even one of the highlight acts in a show that you have performed in, I've heard, and I think the dude is really funny. I don't know him. I think he's really funny. I've heard people say, oh, your jokes aren't funny. But I'm going, even if you go to like a really rocking Taylor Swift concert, people start singing. But if you're in a tuk trying to listen to a Taylor Swift concert where you can't really hear anything, you're not going to sing along.
Yeah.
So the perspective, the vibe is important.
Exactly.
If you're sitting in a bus trying to listen to somebody's comedy set where you can't really hear it and you're reading the subtitles, they're not funny.
Exactly. So so one thing is there are different types of comedy, there are different genres of comedy. Everything doesn't have to be funny to everybody.
Correct.
I don't find all sorts of comedy funny. That's my personal take. So when people say that you're not funny, it's perfectly fine. Right?
That's your
Don't
position.
Don't watch it.
I'm not for you.
Right? I'm not for you. Because that's completely fair. There are different genres of music that I might not like. Right? So it's a personal preference, which is perfectly fine. The second thing people don't understand is when I get invited to big events, like in the middle of a mall or in the BMICH, like wherever, where you're just standing and telling jokes and there's no audience. People are just walking around.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
And you did that?
And then I had to be like, I need an audience. Even small, I need an audience. Because otherwise, unless it's not like enjoying music, you can't be walking around and this is passive hearing and then you still enjoy it. It doesn't happen with...
You sing?
No.
Okay.
I can sing a little bit.
All right.
I mean, it's not like that. Unless, especially my kind of comedy, unless you're sitting down, paying attention and listening, you're not going to get the joke. And obviously it won't be funny. And then there are other events that I have been to where people would just keep talking because they're in there, this thing. It's like a drinking cocktail kind of a gathering and nobody's paying attention to it. And you can't be like, order. You can't. And then, of course, it's not going to be funny because comedy, you need to pay attention. You need to be able to hear it and then make sense of it. So unless you hear it, unless you have a little bit of that to make sense of it, of course it's not going to be funny. And that's okay. But don't come at me for that.
Taniya, how do you learn to say no to gigs that don't align with what art form you're trying to put out there?
Thankfully, I have not had any problematic gigs like that thus far. People who have reached out have always been very respectful and it made sense. So I have not been able to, there was no need for me to say no unless it was clashing with my schedule. But I am very conscious and aware of what I want to do. I don't think it'll be difficult if it had come to a request of something that I didn't want to do. I think it would come easy. I hope so.
Having done this for a few years now, do you still believe women should have and will have a strong role in stand-up comedy in Sri Lanka?
Okay. I genuinely, if you ask my personal opinion, I don't think gender has any role in it. Because most people, when I sort of at the beginning of my career, I think, started saying things like, she's funny for a girl. Or they are saying she's funny because she's a girl. And I'm like, no, they're not. Nobody in my career had told that my jokes were funny because I was a woman. That doesn't make any sense. And the other part of this is, if your ego is hurt because of something I say, because I'm a woman, then that's something you should contemplate about, right? Because the same joke, if a man says it, it's funny. If a woman says it, then it's a bit offensive. Then there's a problem.
That's room for meditation.
Right?
Go meditate.
Right? A bit of self-reflection, some journaling, why am I like this? Who hurt me? Some ego issues. some ego connected issues. But other than that, it's a form of art. So if you're good at it, if you're bad at it, I think gender should have nothing to do with it. The life experiences and the the fun and the relatability that a woman might bring to the table might be different to that of a man. But that's then again subjective.
Correct. And that's all part of entertainment.
Yeah.
You bring a different perspective, sometimes of the very same life, the same environment, but
Exactly.
you bring your unique perspective.
Exactly. And in terms of numbers, I think in Sri Lanka for sure and worldwide also, women stand-up comedians are few. I think that goes to the patriarchal gender roles, gender norms where women are expected to be quiet and obedient and don't laugh out loud. You know, that mindset. So women might themselves think, this is not for me. I shouldn't be this. People will, my parents will be ashamed. People will laugh at me, something like that. But that's like a different conversation to have, right? That's the whole thing about feminism. If you can do it, if you are up to do it, if you think you have the skill set, you should be allowed to do it, regardless your gender.
Yep. How are you going to take your talent, your art form international?
I actually haven't thought of how. I want to. So I definitely have the intention there. I think I first, the shorter term intention is to do a special. But genuinely, I have not thought about how I want to do it. Because like I said, to date, I have not, it's not coming from an ego place, but I have not reached out to play people and have asked for opportunities. I've done things like that. It has always come to me. So I'm thinking when it's the right time, it'll come to me and things will fall in place. There have been a few opportunities where overseas organizers have reached out, but things, for some reason or the other, things have not worked out. It was probably not the time. I'm thinking when it's the time, it'll hopefully come to me.
But it's something you're keen to do?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
For sure.
You said a couple of times that you haven't reached out to get things. And that could be because you're doing really good work and people are reaching out to you. How do you handle rejection?
How do I handle rejection? So if you're specifically talking about those, it didn't come to a point of we don't need you. It was just right now we are unable to do it.
My question's more framed around you might not be reaching out to people.
Right.
Because it's A, not native to you.
Right.
Or B, somewhere in you don't really like rejection.
Maybe. I mostly think because it's like I don't have the energy.
Okay.
That, I mean, I can't. That I think is the bigger reason. But in terms of rejection, maybe. How do I'm trying to think of a moment of rejection so that I can give you like a more specific answer. I like open conversations. So if there was a point of rejection, what would hurt me more is if I didn't get that conversation. If somebody who wants to reject whatever that is, had that conversation with me and I understand why, I think I'd be fine. If you are going to just, and just, I don't know, not talk about it, and I would ask you, I think this happened, I was really like in question as to why has this happened? And I had reached out, I had asked. And then the response would be, we'll get back to you, ish. But then they would never get back to you. And then you're like, and then I think at that point it would be, I would personally find that mildly offensive. Because it's fine, it's your decision, but let me know, talk to me. But if there is a conversation, I think I'm not some perfect person and I deserve some rejections too, I think. And you have to be rejected by the things that don't align in order to be aligned in one day. So I think it's fine.
Okay. Switching to you as the beautiful human, moving away from your stand-up and your career and all of those things.
Yeah.
Tell me, what does the modern dating scene look like in Sri Lanka?
All people are different. We all have different beliefs, values, systems. So I'm not gonna judge someone for something that has worked for somebody, right? I can tell you,
I love the disclaimer, but keep going.
yeah, because I mean, I have met with things, I have observed, experienced things that didn't sit right with me, but that's because it's coming from my belief, my value system. I'm not gonna judge you as a bad person because you are doing that. So I don't know. I don't think I'll be able to generalize how the dating scene in Sri Lanka is. I can tell you what love and dating means to me, coming from my value system. I think I'm also very old school. I am old.
You said this, yes.
Multiple times. At one gig, when I declared my age, 2 different gigs.
You said the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Same thing, 2 different gigs. One gig, nothing, and I was like, yeah, you don't have to applaud for that, you bunch of ageists. And then the other gig, they actually applauded. And I'm like, are you applauding because I'm going to die soon? Like, what is this? But yeah, I am old and very old school, I would say. I think love, I think it's a basic, one of the most fundamental basic human needs, right? And there are different forms of love. For me, self-love is the most basic and the most important and the crucial one, because everything else I feel stems from that. When you talk about romantic love, for me, I think I am at a place I have gone in my journey. I have my lessons learned and all of that. I am now in a place where I am convinced and I believe love shouldn't be out of desperation. It's like you have a cup.
I'm with you. Keep
Yeah.
going. I love this.
Stay with me. You have a cup. Your cup has to be full to a happy enough level. It has to be filled to a good enough level where you now know when somebody turns up with an empty cup, it's not right. It's not fair for you because you worked hard to fill this cup to this level. Because now you as the adult, this cup is completely your responsibility. How you take care of it, how you fill it, what you do, it's completely your responsibility. So I also think love is when 2 whole people, it shouldn't be like I found somebody because he now completes me. Because essentially it means there was something wrong with you. You were empty, there was something incomplete. No, because then you will always be like, if he leaves, I'll be like half. No, your life should be already happy enough, good enough, loved enough, so that when somebody turns up as that happy enough, loved enough version of themselves, you can together create abundance. I think that is fair. I think that is the kind of love that everybody should deserve, I think. Because love is not just the rainbows and the butterflies. It's also those difficult conversations, those everyday efforts, consistency, the trust, the friendship, the respect, and all of those things. So it's when 2 whole people, I would say, come together and choose to do life. And then they can be that mirror to each other, reflect insecurity so that they can help the other person become a better version of themselves. That is, for me, love. And because it's very important that you don't reach it from a point of desperation, because then you are never going to feel like it's good enough. You know, that's a very old school kind of way of thinking. But yeah.
Pressures of a biological clock play a part in your decision making with your maternal instincts?
For me, no.
Okay.
And my family also has sort of, there is no pressure. Because I think we all understand, for me personally, something I truly believe when it comes to work or anything else, my journey is just my own. There is nobody competing with me. I am the only one on this track. If I can turn back and say that I am at a better stance compared to my older version, then I think I have succeeded. So there's no rush. There's no pressure to get ahead fast, find that relationship fast. Because like I said, my peace of mind is my number one, and I am in a peaceful enough, happy enough place. If something adds on to that, perfect. But if that's going to hinder this, then I would really have second thoughts to be like, do I need that? Yeah.
One of the most intelligent people I have ever heard said, don't compete to be the best, compete to be the only. You are the second person who's ever said that to me.
Because it's a very peaceful way to live then. Because otherwise, I'm not saying that there are moments like, oh, am I like lagging behind? But then you sit with those thoughts and be like, no, because it doesn't make factual sense to compare your life with anybody else. Because you don't know what they're going through. You don't know what their journey was like. You only know what you went through. So it doesn't make sense. I mean, factually, if you think, it really doesn't make sense. And you can't. So it's a very peaceful way to live. And I know personally, when people have told me, oh, that one got promoted, blah, blah. And you're like, but that has nothing to do with me. But now you look back and be like, okay, I'm in a perfectly timed journey. And timing is perfect. So, yeah.
People cheer for you when you're on your way up because they want to encourage you.
Yeah.
People pull you down when you've reached any level of fame, although you told me a couple of times you're not famous, any level of fame.
Right.
People pull you down because you remind them of the dreams that they gave up on.
Right. Okay.
Can people who've said things to you which were not pleasant, because you're intelligent, because you have that spirituality, have you forgiven them and moved on?
I have forgiven them and moved. I have forgiven a lot of people. In my personal. If you're referring to, because in my comedy stand-up journey, most of the backlashes I got were from strangers in social media. There was nothing to forgive. These were people who didn't know me, who didn't. So for them, it was more like, why are these people like that? That is a constant question, genuinely. I'm like, wow. How? Why? No, that restaurant question. I was like, how? Like, why are these people like that? That is like the only constant question I have. But then after, so something I actually do in terms of forgetting, if a post, if something I post reaches a certain level of people or reactions, then I know it's going to that danger zone of trolls and bullies and whatnot. So I would just turn off the notification and forget about that post. I will not check the comments and whatnot. So forgiving and forgetting is an essential part of growth. I am very convinced, because unless, first of all, I think the understanding should be, I think you need to start forgiving yourself for the things that you didn't know, tools you didn't have. Therefore, you can start forgiving other people for not knowing any better. Because even when you talk about these biases, these stereotypes, any of this baggage that is being passed from a generation to a generation, right? It's because the people before us, the generations before us, didn't know any better. It was the only thing they knew. And they were just trying to do their best. So it's easier then to forgive themselves. There was a therapist that once said, if your parents gave you this much shit, you are giving your children this much shit. You have done a great job. So, because you as the adult, the grown up, in whatever the biases, whatever the perceptions, whatever the wounds or whatever it is now your job to amend to those things. Because now you're the adult. It is your job to educate yourself. It is your job to look at the world. It's your job to talk to somebody if you need to. It's your responsibility. So after a certain age, I think there's no excuse to be like, I was like this, my society did that. And you need a sense of self-awareness and humility to move away from that victimhood. I don't know why I went there, but...
Because you frame things so eloquently. That's why you went there. If somebody wants to connect with you, book you, have a conversation with you, where do people find you?
So I am mostly active on Instagram. I have a bigger reach in Facebook, but I am not very active there, mainly because sometimes I personally feel like Facebook is a platform that is built to make people fight. I'm mostly active on Instagram. If they drop me an direct message, they can easily get in touch with me. I go by Tani's Originals. That is my original hashtag that I started the little comedy bits. There's a story to that whole Tani thing, but I think
Tell me the story about the Tani thing.
No, so my name is Taniya Lewwanduwage, right? So most people would call me Taniya. People who are close to me call me Tani. But I have this thing where only people who are close to me call me Tani. If somebody who is not close to me call me Tani, I would really be like, you think you know me? Like, I would get like low-key offended. And at the same time, if somebody who is close to me call me Taniya, I'd be like,
I've done something wrong.
I thought we are more like better than that. Are you mad at me? And then I went ahead and named my YouTube channel and my this thing Tani's Originals. Now everybody call me Tani, and who am I? Who is there to blame? Me. So in most of my gigs, I now start with Tani's Original. My name is Taniya Lewwanduwage. You can call me T. So T is my stage name. I'm trying to make people call me T instead of Tani.
Thank you so much for making time to have a conversation with me. I admired everything you do. I want to stay connected and cheer you along on your journey as you do good things in comedy, in stand-up, but in life also. So don't give up on your dreams, and where you can, inspire other people. Because when I watched the little bit I have watched, when I did 100+ hours of research on you, I saw very selfishly for me, somebody who can inspire other people. So please, if you can, inspire at least one or two other people, because there's lots of talent in this beautiful country. Not all of them are as blessed as you are with intelligence, with the right parents, with the right community around them. So if you can, inspire one or two other people.
I will keep trying. Thank you so much. I really had fun. Thank you for finding me. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for spending your time. I know you're a really busy person. I'm
on holiday.
Still, thank you for allocating your time. Just of your holiday, which is not something I would encourage anybody to do. Don't work during your holiday. But I'm really grateful that you reached out, that you found me, and I had this opportunity to really think through some of the questions that you asked. It is not something I have done quite in a while, to really sit down, self-reflect. And I had a lot of joy in doing that. I had a lot of joy having this conversation. Thank you for giving me a voice and a platform. I really appreciate the work you do. Please keep doing. Thank you. Let's definitely stay in touch.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much.